Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission today is, well, it's a deep dive into the fundamental mechanics of how reasoned decisions are actually made.
Hmm.
We've taken a stack of sources, these core texts on argumentation and debate, to give you a genuine shortcut. Not just to being persuasive, but to, thinking critically and making smart choices.
And that element of critical thinking is essential. It really is. This isn't just theory. It's the skill you need every single day to evaluate information, especially now.
Right, with the overload of information.
Exactly. When you can break down these complicated claims into their parts, you're immediately in a better position to judge their strength, which leads directly to better, more ethical decisions.
We often think of debate as, the shouting matches you see on TV. But the material defines debate much more powerfully.
It does.
It's a rigorous process of inquiry and advocacy. It's a structured path to a reasoned judgment on a very specific statement.
And it always requires two competitive sides. That direct confrontation, what the academics call a bipolar clash.
A bipolar clash. So it's confrontation, but it's aimed at clarity.
Precisely. And we're going to show you that the biggest secret to this isn't always having the best evidence, but actually controlling the definition of the reality you're arguing about.
So to give you a preview of how important this is, did you know that the truth about literacy rates in the U.S. once hinged on, well, nothing more than a bureaucratic decision?
It's pretty shocking when you hear it.
Yeah. The U.S. Census Bureau once counted anyone who had attended school through the 5th grade as fully literate.
They didn't test them. They didn't check if they could actually read or write.
Nope. They just checked the attendance record.
And that one decision instantly created this positive national statistic, The underlying reality of functional literacy could have been far, far lower.
It just inflated the number.
Just radically, all through the power of definition. That one move shows you why demanding clarity on key terms is the first step in any argument.
Okay, let's unpack this and figure out how to stop falling for those kinds of tricks.
Mm-hmm.
So institutions in a free society, they rely on debate for decision-making.
Fundamentally. Think about law courts. They operate under the adversary system.
Right.
Truth isn't just delivered from on high. It's supposed to emerge from that crucible of opposing arguments where both sides are rigorously testing the evidence.
Or legislative bodies with parliamentary procedures. Those are just formal structures for managing debate.
And this isn't just theory. If you look back at American history, figures like Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, John C. Calhoun, the Senate Immortals, they shaped the country's course for decades. Not through force, but through their sheer ability to command an argument on the Senate floor.
It's fascinating to see debate as just one tool among several, though. How does it compare to, say, an individual just making a decision?
While a CEO can make a unilateral decision,
Right.
That's an individual one. But the second that CEO needs buy-in from the board or employees,
Then they have to shift.
they have to shift into debate or persuasion to get that consent.
And what about group discussion?
Discussion is great, but it hits a wall pretty quickly. It really only works when the group is small, maybe fewer than 20 people. And, crucially, they have to mostly agree on the problem and share the same values.
So if the group gets too big or the values are too different, discussion just breaks down.
It breaks down and debate becomes the logical next step. That's the difference between a small Senate committee working on a bill and the full Senate floor, where it's all direct, structured confrontation.
We also have to draw a line between debate and persuasion.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, persuasion is a much, much broader category. It's any communication intended to influence acts, beliefs, values.
Like the Marlboro Man campaign.
Perfect example. Incredibly powerful persuasion. It influenced behavior, attitudes, but it didn't invite a logical argument on a defined proposition.
With all image and emotion.
Purely. It doesn't need to present logical arguments for both sides.
So that's influence without the inquiry. And when a group scales that up, that's where we get to propaganda.
That's propaganda. It's just persuasion used by an organized group in a sustained campaign for a mass audience. But here's the critical distinction.
What's that?
The propagandists, they make their decision before they even begin the campaign.
So they're not asking if safe driving is a good idea.
No, they're advocating for a predetermined answer. Debate starts with a question. Propaganda always starts with an answer.
That distinction, starting with an answer versus a question, that feels huge. It's like an ethical boundary for critical thinking.
It is.
Okay, moving to the anatomy of a controversy. If debate needs structure, the first step has to be clarity. I mean, a general discussion on homelessness isn't really a productive argument.
Not at all. You need a precise proposition, a statement of judgment that identifies the central issue.
And it has to have certain qualities, right?
It has to. It must contain real controversy, focus on one central idea, use unemotional terms, and, most importantly, state exactly the decision you want. If the proposition is muddy, the debate will be too.
And like we said before, the entire debate can pivot on just what the words themselves mean, the power of definition.
This is where debates get really sticky and personal. Think about the term death. Is it when breathing stops, the heart, or when the brain ceases to function?
And that definition has profound effects.
Medical, legal, personal, all of it. Or think about the definitions of wetlands or marriage in policy debates. Those definitions are like political fences. They determine who benefits and who doesn't.
Let's go back to that census example on literacy, because that's just wild.
It's a really shocking case study. When the U.S. Census Bureau used that standard of attended school through 5th grade, they created this highly favorable statistic.
But if you change the definition?
If you changed it to require, say, proof of reading at a 5th grade level, the national figure would have plummeted.
So the official definition was a political choice.
It was. It allowed the government to claim a high literacy rate for decades, maybe even delaying educational reform. It was a definition that served a specific interest.
It wasn't just describing reality. It was prescribing the reality they wanted us to see.
Absolutely. So how do advocates defend their definitions? There are basically 3 methods. They can define by example.
Like saying a new program is similar to the WPA from the 1930s.
Exactly. Or they can define by authority, relying on the CDC to define what a disease is.
And the third one is common usage.
Which is so important in public debate. If you're debating sexual harassment, your definition has to be understood across different ages, genders, cultures. If it's too specialized, you've already lost your audience.
Okay, now let's get into verifying the arguments themselves. We need a framework. The Tolman model seems to be the gold standard here for breaking things down.
It is. Every single argument has 3 core parts. First, the claim, that's what you want to prove. Second, the grounds, your evidence or data.
And third, the warrant.
The warrant. That's the bridge, the connection that links your grounds to your claim.
Okay, let's use a simple example. Say I'm pitching my boss. We need to switch our coffee supplier immediately. That's my claim.
Right. Your grounds might be, our current supplier has been late for the last 4 meetings, making clients wait.
And the warrant, the unstated belief is?
The warrant is that punctuality is the single most important factor in a supplier relationship. That's the bridge, and it's often the part that goes unspoken.
And then there are supporting parts, like backing for the warrant itself or modality?
Modality, yeah, the degree of certainty. Are you saying it's definitely true or probably true? And then, of course, the rebuttal, the arguments that might weaken your claim.
So understanding this structure means you can break down literally any argument.
From a TV commercial to a presidential speech, yes.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. The importance of demanding primary evidence. We get caught in this media trap.
We do. Secondary sources, newspapers, blogs, TV, they often miss or just minimize crucial context.
Like with those crime statistics.
That was a dramatic example. Newspapers everywhere reported this massive 16% rise in the national crime rate, all citing FBI reports. But any thoughtful person who actually checked the primary FBI report would have found this huge caution buried inside.
What was the caution?
The statistics were not valid for year-to-year comparison. The FBI had completely switched their counting methodology.
How so?
They moved from the old UCR system, which only reported the most serious crime in an incident, to an incident-based system that let them report up to 10 separate crimes for a single occurrence.
Wait a minute. They went from counting 1 item to counting up to 10 items, and then they reported a 16% increase.
That's right.
So does that mean we should never trust those specific year-over-year comparisons we see in the news?
Absolutely. The underlying reality of crime may not have changed by 16%, but the way they counted it certainly did. The fact was completely altered by a bureaucratic change.
Wow. Which brings us to testing credibility. The first question being, is the evidence sufficient?
And sufficient doesn't mean a mountain of evidence. It's a legal term, a fair preponderance. Just enough to tip the scales and be more convincing than the other side.
The evidence also has to be clear.
Yes. If someone claims TV content is harmful, you have to ask, what do you mean by harmful? Trivial emotional distress or catastrophic injury? What's your definition of violence? Vague terms just show a lack of precision.
And we also have to watch for statistical spin. Just choosing the data set that happens to support your conclusion.
The sources have a perfect example with air travel safety. If you compare safety using passenger miles traveled,
which accounts for the long distances planes travel.
Right. By that metric, planes look 33 times safer than cars. Great for the airline industry.
But if you use vehicle miles traveled,
which just counts the distance the vehicle covers, ignoring how many people are inside, suddenly cars look more than twice as safe as commercial planes.
So both data sets are factual.
Factual, but framed to support diametrically opposed conclusions. You, as the critical thinker, have to decide which framing is actually relevant to the question.
So what does this all mean for us? It means we have to actively identify these common rhetorical tricks, these obstacles to clear thinking.
And the most obvious, the most pervasive, is loaded language. Using emotionally charged words to get to a conclusion without any proof.
Like calling a tax increase a revenue enhancement.
Or labeling your opponents spin doctors instead of dealing with their research. You win by choosing inflammatory words, not by using evidence.
Then there's verbalism.
Oh, that's classic. The abundant use of words that convey very little meaning, usually to avoid taking a stand.
The politician using endless jargon to avoid committing on gun control.
Exactly. Saying, the question is not a simple one, or in the second instance, there is the First Amendment. In the first place, there is the Second Amendment, or whatever. It's just camouflage.
Another one is the appeal to ignorance.
Claiming something can't be true just because you've never heard of it. Your unfamiliarity with cyclical fluctuations in economics doesn't make economic cycles disappear. Ignorance isn't proof.
And a key application of all this is spin control. It's all about timing and framing.
When President Clinton introduced his budget, he immediately called it a deficit reduction package.
He got out ahead of it.
He did. By establishing that positive label early, the opposition's counter label, the greatest tax increase in history, had less time to gain traction. The battle was won with the timing of the definition, not just the evidence.
And we see these principles in formal settings all the time.
Daily. In special debates, like presidential debates, the teams negotiate these complex rules for formats, podium style, town halls, all designed to control the clash.
To limit or amplify certain kinds of arguments.
And of course, in a judicial debate or a mock trial, everything is compressed. You're arguing over legal definitions, evidence credibility, the precise meaning of reasonable suspicion in a complex case.
So ultimately, what we've been talking about today, it really boils down to this.
It boils down to this. Argumentation emphasizes reasoned consideration, and debate provides that necessary confrontation to push those considerations toward a really robust, well-tested conclusion.
And knowing this is in your self-interest.
It is, because genuine debate serves the public interest better than any other method for making decisions.
Absolutely. The biggest takeaways for me are demand primary evidence, recognize the power in defining the terms, whether it's literacy or crime rates, and be able to spot the flaws and tricks in any argument you hear.
And here's a final thought for you to carry forward. Critical thinking isn't just about winning, it's really about delaying judgment until you have sufficient verified evidence and the core propositions are clearly defined. The debate is never truly over until a decision is rendered. And for many big societal issues, the ongoing process of arguing is the decision. So consider this. Which method, debate, persuasion, or propaganda is currently dominating the important decisions in your life right now, and why?